What it do, guys? It's Miggy, Miggy, and we're here back at it again with another episode of Random Rambling. And this time, we're going to be talking about the recently concluded MLBB Mid-Season Cup 2025 in the recent Esports World Cup. But before we get into any of the nitty-gritty, before we start diving into it, let's first congratulate our champions. Team Liquid Philippines, with Carl TZ leading the pack, or maybe JP as captain, but Carl TZ now cemented himself as the GOAT of MLBB. And of course, before all of that, before anything again, congrats again to Team Liquid Philippines. You did make Philippines very proud with this win. And moving on, I just want to pat myself on the back because before everything happened, before the knockout stage happened, before group stage happened, I believe. I predicted these are the top 5 teams favored to win. And if you guys are just listening to me, you're not actually looking at the video. The top 5 teams I predicted who are favored to win would have been Onyx Philippines, Team Liquid Philippines, Onyx Indonesia, SRG OG, and RRQ. Sadly, RRQ fell during the knockout stage, but they still did reach top 8. So congratulations to RRQ for being part of the top 5 teams, or being a part of the top 8. And then, as predicted, they were still one of my top favored teams to take it all. And now, with that being said, let's take a quick look at MLBB MSC 2025. But first, let's talk flow. This video is going to be broken up into multiple parts, I guess. Let's talk tournament first. Let's talk knockout stage, what happened. I'll give you guys a quick summary of what happened during the knockout stage. And then let's talk, of course, this is probably what everyone's been waiting for. We'll talk meta. We'll talk about the picks. We'll talk about the gameplay during the knockout stage. Because why, you might be asking to yourself, why am I just going to be talking about the knockout stage? Why can't you just talk about the whole group stage or the whole MSC meta? I'd like to say that the hero pools are a bit more meta. I'd say when it gets to the knockout stage, sure, the pocket picks appear here left and right, but at least you aren't accounting for very very random or very outliers. You won't be seeing a lot of varying outliers. For example, Aurora Turkey, they played Atlas. Sure, Atlas may work in like the meta standpoint or with a certain lineup. I do acknowledge that, but it's not really just because it has 100% win rate because it was chosen once doesn't mean that it's meta. So we want to be looking at the statistics that actually led the top 8 teams into securing their slots, their positions, and then eventually securing that championship for Team Liquid Philippines. So before we get into the meta or the statistics of things, let's talk about what happened in the MSC knockout stage. So we're scrolling down. Before anything, I guess, let's acknowledge that the top 8. These are in accordance to the games played. Again, if you guys are not watching, I'm doing this for your sake too. If you guys are just listening, I will give you guys the lowdown of who the top 8 in the knockout stages were, or the knockout stage was. So the first name would be, of course, our eventual champion, Team Liquid Philippines. The next one is Aurora Turkey, or Turkey, Mythic Seal, Onyx, RRQ Hoshi, SRG OG, Team Spirit, and Onyx Philippines. So out of the top 8, the very surprising ones would be, of course, Aurora Turkey, because no one expected them to change so much or improve so much, especially with the inclusion of Coach Master the Basics and Coach Dexstar. If you guys were not in the loop or in the know, Aurora Turkey got some help from Aurora Philippines by getting their coaches and having their coaches help them with their strategy and their training all throughout MSC. Next up is Mythic Seal. Mythic Seal, I'd say, was one of the dark horses in this tournament. They did no one did expect them to actually secure this top 8 finish, especially with how their bracket looked like. They did take a series of SRGOG here in Group A. First, SRGOG beat Virtus Pro to send them to lower brackets, and then Mythic Seal 2-1 Corinthians. And then next up to the upper bracket semifinals in Group A, it was SRGOG versus Mythic Seal, with Mythic Seal securing a 2-1 victory over SRGOG, sending SRGOG into the lower bracket for them to fight for their slot to advance to the knockout stage. And let's look at their draft. Mythic Seal secured. It was a pretty. They were pretty long games. If you guys are not seeing this, or if you guys are looking at it, the first 2 games, Mythic Seal secured game 1 after a 22-minute victory, while SRGOG secured game 2 after a 23-minute match. So you know that Mythic Seal was putting up a fight. So congrats to them for making it into the knockout stage. But then, now let's talk score. Team Liquid defeated Aurora Turkey with a 3-0 victory. Then moves on to semifinals, beating out Onyx Indonesia for a hopefully or potential Philippines versus Philippines Grand Finals. Next up is in the same bracket, Mythic Seal lost to Onyx Indonesia with a 3-0, and then eventually falling to Team Liquid with a 1-3 score, which put them into the third place match, wherein they had, or a lot of the fans had what they wanted also, because they were not expecting an Onyx. Another fantasy was either Indonesia versus Indonesia for Grand Finals, Philippines versus Philippines Grand Finals, or Onyx versus Onyx Grand Finals. Next up, in the other side of the knockout stage, you have RRQ Hoshi versus SRGOG. Honestly, on paper, people were expecting RRQ Hoshi to be the victor here, because in terms of mechanic, RRQ Hoshi beats out SRGOG. People were saying in terms of mechanics, Setsuji, those Sekais would beat out Setsujin. Hopefully I got their jungle correct. Sutsujin. But then in terms of skill, Toy would have supposedly beats out Innocent. But there goes a 5-game thriller with SRGOG coming on top with a 3-2 to secure moving on to the semifinals, where they fought Onyx Philippines. And thus another best of 5 game series happened, wherein SRGOG came out on top, putting them into the grand finals. While we're looking at Team Spirit and Onyx Philippines, this was a bit of a fun story, I'd say. I'd like to share this, because when it was the time for picking up opponents for the knockout stage, because the format for knockout stage selection is a bit unique. It's not random. It's the top seeds who choose their bottom seed or their opponents, with the fastest secure, I believe. Whoever won their matches fastest will be the ones who will pick first. So with Team Spirit, they chose Onyx Philippines because, of course, there was a bit of fun banter. If you guys saw the video, if you guys saw the selection of opponents, there's a bit of banter between Kid Bomba and King Kong. But the choice of Onyx Philippines was because Team Spirit based it on scrims, and they said that they chose Onyx Philippines because they were able to win a few matches or a few maps against Onyx Philippines. So that's why they felt pretty confident that there was a chance for them to secure a victory against them. But again, scrims and live competition are completely different, but that's probably for another video. And then they eventually fell to the grand finalists, SRGOG, in another Game 5 series, as I mentioned, which led to the fantasy being fulfilled, or prophecy being fulfilled, with Onyx versus Onyx for a finals match. But sadly, it was for a third place match. And congratulations to Onyx Philippines for securing that third place podium finish against Onyx Indonesia in what I believe is a pseudo reverse sweep. So Onyx Philippines got the first match, then Onyx proceeded to get the next two, and Onyx Philippines proceeded to win the next two matches. Now, let's talk about the grand finals. Team Liquid Philippines versus defending champions SRGOG. SRGOG, defending champions from previous MSC, versus Team Liquid Philippines, with the team having not achieved an MSC title, or rather Carl TC, that was the only title Carl TC needed to secure every trophy or every podium finish that he needed to secure his place as the GOAT of MLBB. It started off a bit rocky with Game 1 being... Game 1 victors being SRGOG. And honestly, if you guys watched it, Yums's Grok was chef's kiss. Very on point. And that's why it's like, when you saw that, if you guys saw Game 1, you would have seen, this is going to be a 7-game thriller. That kind of thing. But then, Coach RC with his drafts, and then Team Liquid with just being woken up. You know, they were a bit sleepy after Game 1. They were still sleepy. They were still, they were still feeling the water, feeling the ground. And then they just came off running. Game 2 to Game 5. They secured every victory they could take. But I want to highlight one moment. I believe that was... Which one? I believe it was... Where's that Louis game? There was that game. Wait. There was a that was... Sorry. Before we talk about it, I want to talk about this. It was against Team Onyx Indonesia, where Team Liquid played Louis. Did they play Louis? Where's that game? I remember them playing Louis. Am I thinking out loud? Yes, they did play. Wait. Where is that game? Hey. Where they brought back... Where's that game? Did they not play Louis? Or was it not here? Alright, it was Onyx versus Onyx. Wherein Onyx Philippines played the Louis and the Kalea. Yes, here. Onyx Philippines, I just want to highlight that match. So sorry for going off tangent, but I want to highlight that gameplay. I'm not sure if I can show a video, but you guys could probably see it online. They talked about how Onyx Philippines, inuwi nila, or they brought Kyrie back home to the Philippines. With the Louis Kalea play, with the new mechanic with diversion, the diversion play. When Louis casts her ulti, she gets revealed on the map. And they knew that Kyrie on his backsha was looking for a pick-off or trying to give vision to the team. What they did was they used diversion play. They used the diversion ulti to try to bait him into moving towards him. And then exactly at the time he was gonna dash into the Louis, Kalea showed up, tsunami slammed backsha into the ulti, bringing them back to the base, thus picking off Kyrie, thus securing that comeback. Because they were at a deficit. I believe it was like a 4K, 5K deficit. And just because of that gameplay, just because of that risky play, they were able to slowly crawl back into securing that Game 5. So yeah, I just want to highlight that game. And again, congrats on the Philippines. So let's go back to our championship. Sorry if I went off tangent there, but I just really wanted to talk about that gameplay. here we see a lot of the people complaining why did they just let Stormy play Farsa the whole, whole grand finals. But honestly, that might be a draft thing. It might be a comfort pick for them. While they didn't understand why they saw how dominant Sanford was on the glue, and they still let them play it because out of the 3 out of the 4 games of Team Liquid, Sanford won them with glue and Zushin. So there's a lot of movement control there, but again, when it comes to these kinds of competition, the nature of competition is there's always going to be a winner, there's always going to be a loser. It just so happened that Team Liquid was just better that day. So hopefully, they keep riding this. Hopefully, securing that GOAT status will just push Carl TC to want to be better, want to actually increase that ceiling. And yeah, I believe that's it for talking about the tournament itself. And of course, now we're getting into the nitty gritty of things. I keep saying that, but now we're looking at what more or less what you guys want to hear or want to talk about, and that is the stats. So let's talk numbers. But of course, let's talk numbers in the knockout stage. Oh no, they didn't have it yet. No. Is it really not here yet? Oh no. Okay, chat, so we don't have the info yet for knockout stage, but I guess let's talk overall. Cause wait, let me just do a quick review of it. Actually, let's do it. Let's do it on the fly, okay? Knockout stage. Here we go. Let's show bans as well. Okay, so a lot of people were banning Fanny. Of course, against Sekais, you would ban Fanny, or if you were up against Onyx Indonesia, you'd also ban Fanny. So it makes sense because as much as we're skewing towards a meta that is more on the alpha, or rather the fighters or the tanks, the utility junglers, it's still a safe ban because once you pick a Fanny, once you're up against a Fanny, you kind of have to skew or adjust your draft towards figuring out a way to survive a Fanny barrage or a Fanny composition. You're looking at preventing side lane pressure. You're looking at games that will be prolonged if no one deals with, or ending quicker if no one could deal with the Fanny early game or Fanny late game side lane pressure. And if we're looking at the picks, you still see that CC is being played a lot. Actually, Cram played it a lot, and Cram played it a lot as it is still a good bruiser as Onyx, though they did not win as much with it. CC was still a pretty dominant pick. I guess a pocket pick here would be, we did not expect the Estes Barats to come out against Team Liquid, especially with Oheb being in Team Liquid, because that is a familiar experience for him with Barats and Estes, but now this time he's against it. And then with SRG OG, they played a very standard, pretty standard meta draft. Because they had, maybe Kagura. Kagura is a surprise pick there, but if they could make it work, they could make it work if they had a draft for it. So we're still seeing a lot of similar picks to previous patch. And I guess we could do it by roles. So the gold lane, let's start with the gold lane because I'd say it's the most niche, or it's the smallest hero pool. You have your Grangers, your Moscovs. Irithel is also is there sprinkled in, but it's usually Granger and Moskov. And then you have your Beatrix, your Hariths, your Irithels sprinkled in between. And Claude, I am surprised and happy that Claude is slowly getting back into the meta. And we also see 1-1. So I believe if I could pick a top 3 from the knockout stage, I see that it would be Granger, Claude, and Moskov being played the most often, if I'm looking at it right now. With Claude and Irithel being in the top 5. With 1-1 and Harith, sadly, kind of fell off because of the item changes and the scaling changes and how fast the pacing is. So yeah, for top 3, that would be Granger, Moskov, and Claude. With being in the top 5 would be we'd be adding Irithel and 1-1, I think. Actually, Bruno is playing, but SRG is the only one playing Bruno. So yeah, we could put in Irithel as a 4th. Next up, let's talk mid. Mid is basically Zushin and Farsa. Zushin, Farsa, and a lot of the big AoE spellcasters. Secondary to that would be Kimmy. Kimmy is part of a unique team composition, which is triple marksman. But given the state of Farsa being very dominant in this meta, that's why very situational, or it becomes an obvious pick, is to take Zetian. Zetian is a very good mid hero pick against the Farsa because it forces you to think about when you're gonna cast your ulti. So if you know that Zetian is gonna use Fury of the Phoenix, you are free to use your Feathered Airstrike without any repercussions. But if you use Feathered Airstrike too early, Fury of the Phoenix is gonna leave you stunned and canceling or ending your ulti early. So if we're looking at the games again, we're looking at actually a very diverse, except for the grand finals, because Stormy just played Farsa 5 times. But we're seeing a very diverse mid pick. It's a mix of meta and comfort picks, I believe. So we're looking at maybe the top 3 from knockout stage. That would be Farsa, Zushin, and Kimmy. And then you have your situational responses. That would be Valentina and Zetian. Because Zetian, as it on its own, if it's not being picked up as a response made, chances are it's not gonna be as effective. Now let's move on to the XP lane. The XP lane is a bit of it's much like the gold lane. Hasn't changed as much because of though the hero pool has changed a bit, but it's still the same limited hero pool, especially when I'd say it's closest to the hero pool after the glue rework showed up. And I believe that would be CC. Chi. CC. I'm happy our Arlot and Lapu are back because of the changes in their skill or toolkit, and Glue and Phobius. So I believe those are the 3. Actually, let me double check. So just in case we are not accounting for comfort picks or pocket picks. And yeah. Okay, so if we're looking at the XP lane, we're looking at it's still the same 3. You have your CC, your Phobius, and your Glue. And you sprinkle in Arlot and Lapu Lapu because of their reworks. They're very situational, but they are very effective situational picks. As we could see, I believe Ford was just really was really doing really well with the Lapu in game 2. And that is why he is our finals MVP. Next up is we've mentioned, let's talk Rome. Rome is a bit of a mixed bag because there are two types of Rome. Rome heroes now. We have your tanky setters, you have your frontliners, and then you have your healers and your utility or your enchanters. But it's often or not, actually, in the recent knockout stage, they prefer to have a roam that sets or a roam that front lines. So that's why you get to see your Kaleas, you have your Gatots, and a lot of the tanky boys are there. And honestly, it's still mixed because you kind of lean towards, you could actually, because the roam is a flexible role, I'd say, with EXP XP laners being able to be utilized as well in the roam role. You are looking at a very wide or a big hero pool, but truth be told, it's still the similar heroes. You wanna be a bit tanky. You wanna have a bit of heal, and it goes to show that if I could come up with a top 3 pick, it would probably be Kalea Gatot, and there's gonna be a third one. The third one would probably be, who did they pick the most after? Kalea Gatot and a setter. Who? I'd say those two. They seem to be the most reliable ones. Yeah. Rather, it's not a top 3, but a top 2. Whoever has the Gatot or the Kalea usually dictate the pace because honestly, those two are so potent in their role as they are early game. They're tanky early game. They provide the heal needed, and they provide really good setup. For Gatot, it's for engaging or disengaging with the AOG. And Kalea Tsunami Slam is just the perfect way to pick off. As mentioned with the Onyx Philippines versus Onyx Indonesia Game 5, wherein they just brought Kyrie home to their base, and that was it. That's all they needed to do to try to slow down the gold advantage of Onyx Indonesia. And last but certainly not the least, the most varied, the hardest one to talk about, which is jungle. Because you cannot really come up with a top 3 pick for jungle because, again, there are multiple ways to jungle. But there are very apparent winners. One of which being Lancelot. Everyone wanted a Lancelot. Everyone wanted to play Lancelot. And then there's Kyrie with the comfort picks. Let's pick 2 utility junglers and two assassin junglers. 2 utility junglers I'd say would be Fredrin and Baksha. Was Baksha played a lot? Yes, okay. Okay, actually we can come up with a top 5 because YSS is a unique one because of, again, it's played in a certain team composition and it's very hard to deal with, especially if they start snowballing early game. So that would be our top 5. Our outlier would be Yi Sun Shin as one. And then your 2 assassins would be Lancelot and Hayabusa. Though I have my opinions on Hayabusa in the current meta, but if it works, it works, right? Lancelot and Hayabusa, and then for utility that would be Fredrin and Baksha. So I like the state of the jungle right now because unlike before where it was all utility and then the following patch it was all assassins, this gives a lot more, this goes to show that there's a lot more variety in this patch's meta, and it's a really nice thing to see. So breaking it down again, our gold laners, we have our Moscow's Grangers and Claude. And then you can sprinkle in some Irithel in there. Next up is mid lane. You have your Farsa and your Kimi, and then your Zushin. And then your situationals would be Valentina and Zetian. Next up is XP, with the three being CC, Phobius, and Glue. And then you can sprinkle in some Arlot and Lapu Lapu. After them is the Roam lane, which is Kalea and Gatot. And then you can put in some utility or healers there. Maybe a Matilda, maybe Estes, maybe an Angela. But it's looking like in this knockout stage, it's Kalea and Gatot who dictate the pace or the victory in their team composition. And last but certainly not the least, the top 5 heroes, or the 5 heroes most notable in the knockout stage, would be YSS for being a marksman jungler. And then you have your utility junglers being Baksha and Fredrin. And your assassin junglers who still exist in this meta, again, Lancelot and Hayabusa. And that's it for the heroes for the meta. But then let's look at the statistics. Because the statistics for this tournament's pretty wild, because I did predict that games will end up being longer, and true enough, we have 650. Actually, a lot of the games ended shorter, but then again, these are a mixed bag. You're looking at group stage, knockout stage, everything, wild cards as well. But going back to knockout stage, let's look at the matches overall, or knockout stage. 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 18 minutes, 14, 15, 19, 20, 14, 15, 10, 15, 14. And we have almost a 30-minute game here for Onyx Philippines. And okay, we're looking at a lot of the games ending in like 10 to 15 to 18 minutes. 10 to 15 or 15 to 18 minutes, the games end, because that's usually the time that's late game, and items start to not matter. It's really who makes the first mistake. That's who often secures the game. Now we're looking at red side, blue side. Majority of the wins of Team Liquid, they were red side. Majority of the wins of Onyx Philippines, they were blue side and 1 red. And then red side here as well. And Team Liquid versus Onyx, blue side won a lot versus red side. Actually, if you notice, Team Liquid did not give Onyx Indonesia blue side at all. And on this side, red, blue, 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 blue. So a lot of the games were secured on blue side. If my eyeballing is correct, the games ended within 10 to 18 minutes, or 10 to 15. If it doesn't end by 15, it ends at 18. And majority of the games were won on blue side, which means having that first pick is very crucial for a lot of the teams, or they would prefer to get that first pick, because the logic goes, when you're taking blue side, when you're first pick, you're the one who dictates the pace of the game. What do I mean by that? When you're dictating the picks, so for example, you take a very meta pick, that would usually be, I don't know, let's say you take a Granger. Right off the bat, red side has to pick heroes that respond to Granger, rather than, okay, let's still do our game plan, and then hopefully that Granger is gonna adjust to us. That's usually not the case. So the red side is very reactive to the draft of the blue side. Since they are the first pick, they are the ones who dictate the pace of the draft. And I believe that's why blue side was favored during MSC. And with that being said, I believe that's my meta breakdown and thoughts on the knockout stage of MLBB Mid-Season Cup. So overall, it was a pretty fun tournament. I'd say the game, or the quality of gameplay currently in MLBB is very high. I wouldn't be surprised if other regions start catching up even more, because as we can see in the top 8, they were a lot of the European countries. There were 2 European country representatives or European region representatives there. And Mythic Seal was really there. They just showed us that they are a force to be reckoned with as well. And overall, it was a fun tournament to watch. I was happy that it's pretty close to our time here in the Philippines, so you could actually watch it live without it being interfering with work, or when it's late at night, it's gonna affect your work the following day. So really happy that we were able to watch the tournament close to our time, and we were able to follow it through and through because of that. And congratulations again to Team Liquid Philippines. And again, it's Miggy, Miggy, and that's another episode of Random Ramblings. And if you guys want to follow me on my socials, everything is at It's Miggy, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode.